This is my aquarium nightlight. I gaze at it every night and fall asleep. But this is what it used to look like. I'll be honest, I've neglected this thing for months. The worse it got, the more I put off saving it. I used to love gazing at it before bed. Now I just turn away from it. But my sleeps haven't been the same since. But today, that changes. But I don't even know where to start. So I started by catching all the little shrimp using this trap made from flat screen mesh. The bait is in this little pouch. I dropped it in and waited for the shrimp to come to the bait, then pulled it up and put them in a holding tank before I tear apart my aquarium. It's honestly a miracle these poor little guys have survived this long in this aquarium. I scooped up all this duckweed and carefully disposed of it. Underneath this mess, I found this clump of Java ferns. They would later become the centerpiece of the tank, unlike this monstrosity of pearlweed. I'll use some later, but not all of it. Now we're left with this barren mess. I had this pile of gravel at the back, but it was cramping the style of the tank, so I got rid of it. And underneath the gravel and sand, I found this cool rock. And another one. And one more. These will look great when it comes to aquascaping the tank later on. My filter sponge hasn't been cleaned in months, maybe a year. This is likely why the water is mud brown, so I gave it a good squeeze. Bottoms up, pinkies out. Not bad. Everything has been removed from the tank. Now it's time to rebuild. And since we got rid of so much gravel, I wanted to replace it with more sand. So I thoroughly cleaned some sand and I got startled by the hose. And then I added the sand to the tank. The next thing to do is to aquascape the tank. I found these rocks in my garden and thought they would look cool as a feature rock. I checked on the little shrimps and they were still happy, patiently waiting for their new home to be built. The back wall looks pretty boring and bare right now, but I want to give it more attention and make it pop. Now I had an idea for the back wall, and it might sound kind of weird, but hear me out. I first get gutter guard mesh, and then I cut not one, but 2 squares the same size as the back wall. I went into my dad's shed and took some water paleo from his aquarium. I then spread it across the mesh and sandwiched it between the other mesh piece. Then I zip tied the edges off and hung it on the back wall. Now it may look stupid and ugly right now, but I promise you it's gonna look mint. It will need another month or 2 to grow into a lush plant wall. This back corner was empty, so I got our leftover pearlweed and planted them. And the Java ferns from earlier, I attached them to this feature rock. Now the tank is pretty much finished, rocks and plant wise, so it's time to reintroduce the shrimp back to their new and improved home. The old shrimp are definitely enjoying their new home, but I think they need more friends. We have an outdoor pond with heaps of shrimp and endler fish. Using this trap again, I threw the trap in the water and waited for the new shrimp and endler fish to come to the bait. And then I snatched them up. I also put fish food on the surface and waited for the endler fish to come to the surface and feed. Then I strike. I set up a drip feed system to slowly climatize the shrimp and endlers to the water in my tank, and after some hours, it was time to release them to their new home. The endlers were really anxious, mostly hiding in the corners, all frightened. All but one. This little endler was exploring, and had no fear, and was even staring off at the massive shrimps. I'm gonna name them Ender. The shrimps, on the other hand, immediately started eating. They had no anxiety in their body. The endlers were taking their time to get used to the environment, but this one in particular kept harassing the others, probably projecting its fish insecurities, trying to assert dominance. But it was just being mean for no reason. The tank is all set up and ready. All it needs is a few weeks to establish and for the plant wall to grow lush. 6 weeks later, the tank has a bunch of algae growing, likely because there's more shrimp and fish poop and less plants, but this will balance over time. My plant wall looks pretty dismal, it didn't grow much. So I took it out, cut off the top layer of mesh, and sewed the water pellier directly to the bottom layer, then put it back in the tank, and it already looked way better. All my shrimp were hiding behind the plant wall, or in their little cave. There was also a ghost, then I saw another shrimp eating the ghost. And a lot of the females were now pregnant with a lot of eggs. The endlers were settled nicely, and they looked much happier, and that one aggressive endler had calmed down. Ender was growing, but still the smallest fish in the tank, but not the smallest creature compared to these little worms I found on the glass. My tank is now pretty established and conveniently low maintenance. When going to sleep, I have automatic timers to turn off the blue light and turn on my warm light. And an automatic timer turns it off while I'm already sleeping.